7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yo, what's Gucci, fam? This is Bola, the podcast for creative entrepreneurs who want to understand the individuals winning in the creative industry and want to learn how to attain success in their own pursuits. My name is Darren Figueroa, and my mission is to help you, the creative entrepreneur, find the roadmap to grow and succeed in your own endeavors. We share stories, insights, and tips from established and emerging creative entrepreneurs so you can attain success in your own pursuits. In this episode, Thomas Kennedy, immigration and progressive rights activist. Thomas grew up witnessing the daily struggles of his undocumented parents. This motivated him to become an activist, advocating for immigration reform. His leadership has resulted in the registration of 29,000 voters in 2018, and in 2019, in Florida, he successfully helped pass Amendment 4, which restored voting rights to 1.4 million Floridians who had previously been disenfranchised. Through his life experiences and dedication to activism, Thomas has become a prominent figure in the fight for immigration rights and progressive causes. His work in voter registration, electoral campaigns, and advocacy has left a lasting impact on the communities in South Florida. Thomas continues to be an influential voice in shaping policies that foster inclusivity and support the rights of immigrants across the United States. Let's get into it, all right? Listo. How would you like me to I have you as an investigative journalist. Is that okay for you? Or
you could put, just put like writer, advocate, inquiring mind. I don't know if journalist is like a.
You don't like the word journalist?
I do. I just don't know if I can wear that mantle.
What is in your head? What is a
I guess
journalist?
you could.
What do you consider a journalist?
I don't know. It's because I'm very there's just like a lot of schools of thoughts around journalism. There's people like journalism has to be like objective. You can't take any, and then there's like advocacy journalists. I guess you could say, yeah. I mean, I consider myself that I do some advocacy journalism for sure.
Okay. Yeah. We're in another episode of the Bola podcast. Thank you so much for everybody for tuning in. Ya tu sabes, your boy D Fig. Holla at your boy when you see me in the street. In the studio, we have my dog, Thomas Kennedy, investigative journalist. Thank you so much, Thomas, for coming out to the podcast and talking to me, man.
No, thank you for the invite.
I appreciate that, man. I see that you've been doing a lot of things recently in your advocacy role, right? Uh-huh. We were just talking right now, prior to even starting the podcast, about what do you consider an investigative journalist, or what do you consider a journalist? You see yourself more as a writer, okay? So what's the differentiating point there in your head?
Yeah, I mean, I do some writing, I do some community organizing, some advocacy. I guess I could be an advocate. There's just so many different schools of journalism, right? I mean, there's people that say you have to be completely objective as a journalist. You can't give your opinion. What you have to present is just an unbiased story and facts, and people have to make up their own minds about it. That's perfectly fine if you want to do that. But I also do think that there's room in journalism and in writing to be an advocate, right? And to take up positions, to have an opinion, and to push back, right, against corruption. Not just to point out corruption, but to actually present a worldview and an opinion. And, I think in terms of this country, the First Amendment, free speech, I think increasingly advocacy journalism is needed and called for, in terms of politics in this country. Now, I do want to say, there's even room for, I think there's room for partisan journalism, right?
Okay, that's a crazy take.
But what I think the line has to be drawn is in terms of just untruthful journalism. When you're going to be partisan or biased or non-objective and then start skewing a story or presenting, being selective in terms of which facts you present, or blurring, a story to benefit your side, that's where I think the line started to get blurred or crossed. And I think that's where what we see a lot in media these days, on both sides, to be honest, on both sides of the political spectrum, left and right.
Yeah.
People are consuming a lot of media that doesn't tell the full story, or is just straight up misleading, or just lies.
I mean, you brought up a lot of dope points there, right? So like, as a journalist, you see more the role of a journalist nowadays is to advocate and to like present different worldviews and to push like different narratives, or do you feel that it has to be like
No, not necessarily right. I think there's a lot of room for everything, right?
Yeah.
Especially in this like multimedia hyper information age that we're living in.
Yeah.
I think there's room to do whatever you want, but the important thing is to be truthful. In fact, two of the most respected people that I respect most as journalists in this state, and if anybody else is watching this, don't get offended if you're a journalist, because I think a lot of you are great.
Yeah.
But there's two guys named Mario Ariza.
Oh, okay, I had him on the podcast.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
He rocks.
Yeah,
and then this
he's
guy
dope.
Jason Garcia from Orlando, who has a blog, Substack called Seeking Rents. I mean, those guys are like very like traditional, like down the line,
Yeah.
objective journalist, but they do kick-ass work in terms of like shining, like a spotlight on government corruption, on corporate corruption. And I think Jason, a little more than Mario, will let his like opinions or biases shine a little more.
Yeah.
But I do think it's okay if you want to do that, and they do what they do well. But I think there is also just room for journalists who want to say, "Hey, I think what this politician's doing is fucked up," and I actually do think this person's corrupt. You know what I mean? But again, the important thing is that you gotta be truthful with what you present to people and not lie.
Okay, I mean that touches us. So recently, with the whole Fox News, Dominion voting thing, right? So that lawsuit brought a lot of things to air, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fox News has always like presented itself as those segments as not like journalistic segments. Like with Tucker Carlson, he recently just got fired and things like that. They consider it more like entertainment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how do you feel that that's a proper way to do it? Like if you're gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna play around with the facts. I'm not gonna be. This isn't real, because if it's entertainment, it's not real. It could be fictional. I'm just presenting it so as that it comes off like it's real, and it's up to the person who's watching it to decipher and be like, okay, this is real or this is entertainment.
No, I don't think that's acceptable, because I mean I honestly haven't watched Fox News in a long time, but I think their channel slogan was fair and balanced, right? Or whatever.
Yeah. It used to be something like that. Yeah.
They're not fair and balanced, and it's okay if you're not. Like, if you want to be like right wing, like hyper partisan media, like that's fine. We have freedom of speech in this country, but like don't put your tagline as fair and balanced, because you're not both of those things. And like if you have you ever read
What if
Politico?
you're fictionally fair and balanced though? What if it's like a movie? Like the movie's called Fair and Balanced.
Yeah, well, yeah, sure, but like, have you read Politico, like the website?
Yes,
magazine?
yes.
So I don't like this, right?
Yeah.
But like, if you read Politico, they will have certain articles that will be like, you'll be like an article being like, I don't know, like ExxonMobil's spent like $10 million this year for renewable energy, blah blah blah. Like, read all about it, and then you open it and it'll say this is sponsored content by ExxonMobil. I don't like that. It's obviously pay to play, but at least the reader immediately at the top can say this is sponsored content, and like at least you can process that and say, okay, like what I'm gonna read is obviously like paid propaganda.
Yeah.
With the case of Fox News that you're talking about, they're not like labeling their like
I see what you're saying.
their programs entertainment, right? They just say that whenever they get sued, and it happens so much. For example, there's so many pay to play like blogs in Florida, like Florida's Voice, right?
Yeah.
Florida Standard, even Florida Politics, which is like a really popular one.
Yeah.
Well, they will have pay-to-play content. We've done investigations on this for like candidates or campaigns or different, corporate entities. and they don't even like take the time to label that for their viewers. Like that's wrong. You know what I mean? That's lying and misleading.
Yeah, like
your
passing
viewers.
it off like it's objective.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, and I'm not like everybody got to eat,
Yeah.
and I got to get paid too. But I wouldn't take money personally from like Exxon or like an entity that I don't feel good about to write a story. But if you do, just like label it so your readers
Know what's up.
know what's up,
Yeah.
and they can make their own mind about that. But if you're not even doing that, like I think that's really disrespectful to the readers. I think it's unethical, and I think it just creates a dynamic where people are just misled about a story and about the facts of a story.
I mean, that's what's up, bro. Like, I feel you 100% on that. Like, honestly, people who enjoy consuming things and like if you like a bubble, for example, if you're like a big video game person, right? You love consuming video games. You'll consume the video game regardless of like if it's healthy or unhealthy to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like people feel the same way about like media nowadays, right? So they'll be like, even if you did label that as this is just entertainment, right at the beginning of Tucker Carlson or something, people will still watch and they will still take it as the holy grail. Like these people are speaking truth because they'll just write it off like, oh, they just have to say that because of that takes the liability off, et cetera, et cetera. They'd write it off as such and still consume it and still take it as truth. I mean, because people love being right. They want to be right about their opinion. And if somebody keeps telling you you're right about your opinion, you can be like, you know what? I like you, bro. You my dog. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That happens often. How do you try to tell the truth, right? But at the same time, appease people that you know are liking what you're saying.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Okay, so like everybody has an audience, right?
Uh-huh.
You know your audience. You know who the people are who are gonna really want to consume your media or consume your stuff. So you're keeping yourself true because you're saying, okay, even if this doesn't play well with my audience, like the people who really consume my media and are gonna be like, they're gonna try to come at me now.
So you're talking about audience capture. How do I deal with audience capture? Right, like not pissing off your audience and losing them.
being honest though.
Yeah, I mean, look, you gotta be, honest about things. For example, I'm a progressive guy.
Okay.
For the most part, I worked for the Bernie Sanders campaign. I think a lot of like the people who follow me, which is, I don't have a huge following or anything, but the people who read me or follow me on social media, I think they're mostly like Democrats or people on the left to some various degree.
Okay.
People may be very like hard left. Some people may be like very like milquetoast, Biden Democrats.
Do you think you have any like people on the far right watching you or listening to your reading?
I think definitely some libertarians and people like that.
Okay.
That are like, I've definitely interacted with a lot of libertarians who are concerned about like the right wing weaponization of state power and their attacks on free speech. But going back to your point, I can definitely piss off a lot of like Democrats if I go after Biden or Democrats at the state legislature. But I try to avoid for the most part, attacking Biden if it's not warranted, just because to me, and this is just being quite honest, the other side is so fascistic and presents such a threat to not just like our democracy, but like trans people, gay people, immigrants, people of color. I think they're horrible. But when they gotta get attacked, they gotta get attacked. For example, recently they adopted, the Trump style asylum ban.
Title.
Well, they got rid of Title 42.
Yeah.
But they basically adopted the Trump era transit ban that basically forces people to seek asylum through a third party country, basically like demolishing our asylum system. And I posted about that. I went on TV and spoke about that, and I attacked them. And I said, this is disgraceful. Like, these are like asylum rules that have been in place like since like they were born out of the Holocaust because of our failure of giving Jews and other people in those times safe refuge from the Nazis, and now we're stomping all over that legacy. I got arrested in 2021, shutting down the port of Miami.
Okay.
We did a civil disobedience. and we're protesting Biden because of I don't know if you remember when they were whipping the Haitian folks at the border.
Oh yeah, I recall
So that action was born out of that, and just out of a call for the Biden administration to work with Congress to pass immigration reform to include it in what was the Build Back Better package. So there are times, often, where I'm like, okay, we gotta criticize our own side now too, because if not, you're in a cult. And at the end of the day, these are just politicians and these are just political parties. And my political identity, believe me or not, it's not. I don't tie my political or just personal identity to I'm a Democrat, right?
Yeah.
This is just the side of American politics that is the best vehicle for me to try to affect some change, and the other side, particularly in this point of time, to me is absolutely horrific. So I'm like straight up scared of like the Republican Party in power. But sometimes you gotta criticize your own side, and if it means pissing off your audience, so be it. If it means losing followers or whatever, so be it. And to be honest, I've never really had that reaction out of people, or because I think when I have attacked Democrats, we've done it in a principled way. Just this week, we posted a video from my own podcast where we talked with McKenna Schuler, who's a writer at Orlando Weekly, about how the housing and anti-labor bills in the legislature.
Mm-hmm.
I think Democrats were really good on the anti-union bill in terms of opposing it, but a lot of Democrats supported what was deemed as an affordable housing bill that was really just a giveaway to developers without any direct aid to tenants and renters. And the worst part is that it included a provision to ban rent control in Florida. And it was a response to Orlando passing a rent control measure last year by over 60% when it went up.
The whole city itself.
Yeah, when it went up for the voters. And a lot of Democrats signed on to that, and we criticized them harshly for it. Yeah. Because I think that was horrible. Yeah. And it's indicative of the pay to play nature of our politics at the state level. And not all Democrats, by the way, there were Democrats that opposed it, but a lot of them didn't. And in a time where so many renters are struggling in this city, we were just talking about it before the interview. I just found it horrible that you didn't have one party that was supposed to be for working class people taking a clear and unified stand against it.
I mean, what's crazy? A lot of what you've touched on, really, it comes down to the voters, right? Because the voters are the ones who hold people accountable, right? Now, you touched on the fact that people are multifaceted, right? Like, you're just not. I'm not just a liberal. I'm not just a Democrat. I'm not just a Republican. I'm not just a libertarian. I'm also X, Y, Z, and all these other experiences that I've had come into play when I vote or when I think about different things or different issues. Here in Florida, we have we're really divided, right? Like the South and the North has always had this different culture completely. Mm-hmm. Recently, when DeSantis just went up for re-election, he won Florida and he won Miami by and it hasn't happened in a minute, right? It hasn't happened in a minute.
He won the whole state by 19. He won big.
He won. Okay, so winning huge in South Florida, it's not. It's hard for me to understand it, but it's also it's like, what is. I want to know what is the idea, or how do you perceive that? Because to me personally, it's just people for somebody to do things really only vote on their economic needs, right? Not on any other need. They're thinking about money at the end of the day, mm-hmm. and they're not empathetic to other people's needs in other ways. That's the only way that I could describe what that happened. That happened here in South Florida, right? How do you see that?
So a lot of thoughts here. So it's going to be a bit of a rambling answer,
that's crazy,
if you don't mind.
Right?
Yeah. So first of all, I think Trump is a piece of shit, honestly, and I would 100%. Never vote for him. But I can put myself in the mindset of a Trump voter because he's like a cultural phenomenon. He's been, in the zeitgeist for so long. I mean, the guy's in fucking Home Alone. You know what I mean? He's an entertainer. He's pretty fucking funny in a lot of ways. So I get the voter that wanted to throw a grenade in the system by voting for him. Wasn't me. I didn't do it.
Yeah.
But I get it. With DeSantis, I don't fucking get it. Like, to me, the guy is like a loser, unappealing, not funny, like aggrieved. Just, I don't get it. But I will say this. What happened in 2022, a lot of people blamed it on a lot of Democrats said, we lost because of voter suppression. And don't get me wrong, there's definitely an element of voter suppression in terms of like, anti-voting rights laws that have been passed that make it harder for people to vote by mail, for blah, blah, blah.
I mean, that's a scapegoat, though,
Exactly.
Man. That's a scapegoat.
But that's my point. My answer to that was, yes, that's true, but why we lost in 2022 has more to do with voter depression than suppression. Because if you look at the data, Ron DeSantis actually did not get, numerically, statistically, any significant more number of votes than he did in 2018. He remained pretty stable. But what happened is the number of Democrats that went out to vote compared to 2018 when they went to vote for Gillum significantly dropped. So that goes to show you that there was a lack of enthusiasm. There was a lack of organization by the Florida Democratic Party and the campaigns. I think the candidates at the top of the ticket were poor, to be honest. And there was just no energy, right? So, I think that has a lot to do with it. But, I also just want to reiterate that I don't think that the Florida masses turned out in droves to vote for Ron DeSantis either.
It's just that, like, less people showed up on the left side.
It's just people are just like, they were not organized and they were not enthusiastic to vote for the Democrats and the Democratic candidates. And one last thing before I finish, I thought it was going to be a rambling answer, is that, yes, there are people that are very divided, right? There's people that are like, I'm a hard Democrat, and there's people that are, I'm a hard Republican. But the population that is increasing in Florida more than anything is independents.
Yeah, people who are like, yo,
fuck this shit.
Yeah, I'm lenient. I'm left liberal on this shit, and I'm conservative on that shit. Yeah. That happens oftentimes.
Or they might actually just be like really right wing or really left wing or kind of apolitical, and they don't even have opinions, but are like, I don't believe in any of this shit.
I mean, that's the truth, because on both sides now, it feels like both sides is gaslighting their own people, and that's like, I'm personally, I see it and I'm just like, yo, what is Gucci here? Like, how are you trying to engage somebody, right? And you're gaslighting them. Just at the end of the day, there's no real like movement. There's no like, I remember when like Obama came out and that hope thing, and it was like a movement. It felt like, yo, something's gonna pop. Like some things are gonna change. And I mean, you know what Obama did change? He had Obamacare, bro. Like without a doubt, one of the most revolutionary things like that Americans have right now is Obamacare. People don't even understand it, because I sell insurance, right? I'm an insurance agent. Mm-hmm. I knew health insurance prior to Obamacare. And that shit used to be wild, my guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, exclusionary, your deductibles could go up to like, you could have a $20,000 deductible. And then Obama came around and it was like, yo, he succeeded on doing something. It feels like that's missing now, right? From both parties. It's not even one party. It just feels like right now it's just like everybody just trying to sling mud at each other. And it's no longer like, yo, let's try to do this. And let's try to push this forward. You having the position that you could like champion things. You've championed a lot of the time immigration reform, right? Talk to me about like your immigration reform story. Why did you decide this is what I want to champion? This is what I want to bring forth. And this is the movement I want to push.
Yeah, sure. So the reason why I'm so involved in immigration is because, it personally affected me. Mm-hmm. I'm an immigrant myself. I came here from Argentina when I was 10 years old with my parents. We left our home country because there was an economic implosion after an unsuccessful attempt to basically dollarize our economy that just did not pan out. And my mom worked at the front desk of a university. Like a a working class job, and my dad worked in the public sector. And when the economy imploded, there was basically no money left to pay public sector employees. So he got a little bit of severance, and he was like, "Well, I'm gonna." His sister lived here, so he was like, "I'm gonna go try my luck in another country."
Mm-hmm.
So we managed to get we were lucky, and we managed to get approved for tourist visas.
Okay.
We came here and we overstayed them,
Mm-hmm.
and we were left without papers.
Yeah.
And and then 6 months after we came, the 9/11 attacks happened, and that really
Sheesh.
tightened immigration laws.
Yeah, I remember that.
So if you no longer could get like a driver's license, for example, in Florida, whatever. So I think a lot of I work in immigration. A lot of immigrants come here without the proper knowledge or information about how to adjust their status. And my dad kind of had that idea, right? That like, well, we'll get there, we'll figure it out. Like my sister's there, like we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And like 15 years later, I was graduating high school. I was like 18, and I'm like, damn, I still don't have papers.
Yeah.
I can't get a driver's license. I can't go to school because this was before in-state tuition passed in Florida, so you had to pay as a foreign student. That's 4 times more expensive. I didn't have a work permit. So I was like very frustrated about my prospects, and like my life trajectory and what I was gonna do. I was like, damn, nothing against like construction. I was working construction at the time. Nothing against construction workers. My dad's a construction worker, but to be quite frank, I was like, I don't want to work construction for the rest of my life. I want to go to university and get a job. At the time, I wanted to be an architect, whatever. It's like, fuck, like I'm stuck. And then at the time, this was like about 2010, there was a push for something called the DREAM Act, which
No, the DREAM Act.
Yeah, it's legislation for the viewer that basically lets immigrant youth that were brought here in their young days to adjust their status after, meeting certain requirements. And there's been many iterations in the last 25 years of the DREAM Act, and they've all failed. And yeah, I got involved in 2010 during that campaign. That failed, but, I stayed involved, and over the years I increased my involvement. And then in 2015, my dad actually, not to make my story super long, but it's important. My dad got sick. He's a construction worker, like I told you. He needed a double hip replacement because his hips were worn out from so much labor, and he couldn't get the treatment because he was undocumented. So he couldn't get insurance or get it financed. And a double hip replacement in this country at the time was $90,000. I don't even know.
So is anything in healthcare is expensive.
Yeah, it must be more now with inflation, right? But this was 8 years ago, and he was left for 2 years without able to walk, or with like walking with extreme pain. He couldn't.
That's crazy.
He couldn't work. I had to move. I was working in Gainesville at the time, and I had to move back to basically help the family out, and we had to GoFundMe basically the money for the operation. Sheesh. And it was a whole story, but we managed to get operated, thankfully, and I ended up getting married for my papers, so I managed to adjust my status that way. But it was I'll say traumatic and difficult ordeal that spanned well over a decade for me and longer for my parents. And after, I got my papers and everything, I was like, damn, I really don't want
other people to have to
go through this. This shit sucked. And it's been since 1986 that we've, the last immigration reform passed under Ronald Reagan at the time. I think it's time. I think it's time for us to look at these laws and revamp them. So that's what I do these days. So it's probably the topic that I'm most passionate about.
I understand that whole story because like that's kind of like a common story in South Florida and something that me and my own family went through, right? My question is, how could then somebody who has gone through that experience then have children who are then second generation and have been born into privilege and an American lifestyle and then turn to the far right and champion a person who would not want anyone who's like that to come here or even give an opportunity to come here? That's the real question. That's the question of South Florida, right? Like, how could you have so many immigrants come here who are trying to luchar, echar pa'lante, like everybody's trying to do, and then all of a sudden one generation is like, yo, close the borders, like don't let nobody in.
You're in the elevator with that door close button.
Close button, close door, yeah, it's like
shit.
I don't. That to me, first of all, the lack of empathy, but it's like how does that happen? And it happens a lot.
Let me tell you a story. So in 2016, I was working for a union. I was working as a union organizer.
Okay.
A union called Service Employees International Union. It's a private sector union. And during election time, we were out with our workers who wanted to canvass, getting out the vote, right? A couple of weeks before the election, right? Just doing some like community electoral work. And I remember I knocked on this door in like the Falls,
Okay.
by like like Kendall-ish. It's not really Kendall, but like that area of like in southern Miami. And I knocked on a door like suburban, like middle class, like kind of like getting to McMansion-y like level, you know. But very typical Miami home. So I knocked, and it was like a Mexican guy.
Yeah.
And shame on me. I kind of profiled the guy, and I was like, oh, this guy's gonna be with us.
100%.
Like, this is not gonna be a Trump voter, right? He's Mexican, like he's an immigrant.
Yeah.
Like I was like, cool. Like, and I talked to him, and I'm like, do you obviously know there's an election coming up.
Yeah.
Blah blah. And I'm like, yeah. So what do you think of Trump? And I swear, I was like, this guy's gonna it's gonna be a friendly come up.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, no, I'm voting for Trump. I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, I'm voting for Trump. And then we got into this whole conversation because I'm not gonna fight with the guy.
Yeah.
I was like genuinely
That's what you like. That's what you
interested.
like.
Yeah, but I was genuinely interested. Like, wow, I was like so wrong.
Yeah.
Like, I want to hear more about this guy's opinion. And I remember he told me his story, and he came across the border in the 80s.
Facts.
And I was like, damn. I at one point, non-confrontationally, because again, I'm not trying to fight with like a person that I just met that I'm knocking on his door. But I did say, I was like, so, but aren't you like disturbed by like his anti-immigrant rhetoric and like the whole talk about deporting people and stuff? I mean, you came across the border, and you even told me you got amnesty through Reagan, right? And then he told me, yeah, but the thing is, I had it really rough. I had it really rough coming here, and people need to live and learn, and people need to have it rough to build character. People just can't be given things to them. I was like, that is fucked up, man.
I mean, but you know
but
what?
a lot of people think that way.
Yes, that is such a like Latin American thing. Like I tell a lot of my friends, right? Like when we talk politics, like or whenever this type of subject matter pops up, I'm always like, yo, South America elects a shitload of dictators, bro. Like we like authoritarian
on the left and the right,
on both sides. Doesn't matter, Pinochet, or you could get like whoever, bro.
Yeah.
Like on both sides, they like authoritarian figures. They want somebody que llegue con un machete.
Un hombre fuerte, caudillo.
Un hombre fuerte. We like Latin American people love that. They love that, and whether it's gonna harm them or not, they just want somebody who like, aquí yo pongo, like I'm putting the order, right? That whole dynamic, it's such a crazy dynamic because everything that is really all these laws that are currently passing, especially in South Florida, that new law that DeSantis just signed that goes into effect in a month or so about no immigration, like no illegal immigrants would be able to work in various places because they have to get e-verified, which is a big part of like the economy, right? Construction in South Florida or in all of Florida. How that plays at the same time with people who are like, oh, I came here in the 80s and Reagan gave me my papers because of this and that. That's always like a dichotomy that I cannot like. It's a chasm. It's like, yo, it's hard for me to understand you. Like I hear what you're saying and I know what you mean. that you want a strong man and you want somebody que eche machete, but at the same time, like the people who are getting machetazo are like your own people, bro. Like your own people. Le está echando machetazo are your own people, fam. And that's hard for me to understand. Like it's really hard for me to be like, yo, your lack of empathy. That's what it is. Like, because if you really like understand that, you're like, yo, I don't want to cause you harm, or I don't want to make things. For example, right? I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but this is something that's come on. Like all these kids who are coming to the border, like parentless and things like that, because the parents are sending them off because in Nicaragua, communist dictatorship is making things crazy, or the cartels in Central America are making things crazy, and people here like, oh, putting the kids in cages. When in the 60s, Peter Pan, all the Cubans get sent here because things was popping off in Cuba, and the archdiocese takes them all in. All these Peter Pan second gen people are whose parents came here with the same exact like circumstances. I mean, no difference. I don't know how you could then turn around and be like, no, fuck them kids, put them in a cage.
You know what? I mean, well, first I do want to say, a lot of Cubans are definitely see the cognitive dissonance there and call it out. But I've talked to some that don't, and even people like Marco Rubio or these politicians. You know what their answer is? We're different. It was different back then.
How is it different?
Because we were escaping a communist dictatorship, but like you literally say, well, some of these kids in Nicaragua are escaping political repression, or some of these kids in Haiti or in Central America, you know what I mean? But they don't care. They don't care because it doesn't fit into the larger political narrative of their party. You know what I mean? And the anti-immigrant, stance of a majority of their voters. So they will play mental gymnastics to justify that. You know what I mean? Like someone like Marco Rubio, right? That was like literally championing immigration reform when he was part of the Gang of Eight in 2013.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then voted against his own bill. I posted a clip recently of him with Jorge Ramos, and Jorge Ramos was literally asking him, bro, like, your fucking grandfather had an order of deportation. Like, he came to this country illegally and had an order of deportation, and now you're like railing against the
immigrants,
and the the illegals and invasion across the border. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? But again, there's a certain type of person that, I hate to say it, it's just selfish. And will always play mental gymnastics to say, I'm different, and my personal circumstance is different, and I don't have empathy for these people. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
And that's what it boils down to, right?
Yeah, it really does come down to that. 100%. It's a lot of, we get that a lot of here in South Florida right now. Like, there's a big trial in the federal courts going on with Joe Carollo and like doing all that crazy shit with the Fuller guy and the ball and chain people. I'm just like, yo, that makes no sense to me. But at the same time, like, yeah, that's like commonplace. I feel like we've gotten so accustomed to that kind of like leadership. We've gotten so accustomed to that kind of leadership that we cannot, as a common people, we can't even dream of having somebody who could actually do something good, or be different. It's tough.
David Smiley, who's a longtime reporter of South Florida, literally had a really good tweet. I thought I retweeted it. He said, it's often a cliche in South Florida that people rail against the mayor being in the pocket of developers. Yeah. In this case, it's true. And the story that he's referencing is that a lawsuit against a developer just uncovered that, the crypto-crazed mayor of Miami, Ponce Postalitas, my friend Billy Corbin will call him, Francis Suarez, was literally the consultant for a developer that was being permitted by the city that he's a mayor of for projects. And he made $80,000 and didn't disclose that to the public. And that's a major story all over the press. No one's batting an eye.
Nobody's batting an eye. Nobody. That's the thing. Nobody gives a shit. That's wild.
Insane levels of corruption in a city that's also, by the way, facing unprecedented levels of an unprecedented affordable housing crisis
And climate change.
and climate. You know what I mean? Like, you have this fucking grifter mayor, like
But nobody gives a shit.
skimming money off the side while permitting, construction projects. Crazy.
The only way he got caught was because of the suit, because it came out. But God knows how many other side gigs he got going on right now. I mean, Buddy's getting paid, one time.
The guy was, and literally that follows the story the week before that he was at Formula One.
Yeah,
and got two $14,000 tickets. It was almost $30,000 for him to go there. Won't say who disclosed that.
Yeah.
And people are like, "Oh, he's the mayor." I'm like, bro, no. There's gifts.
There's rules,
I worked in the state legislature. No one gives a shit, but there's rules around gifts, and there's ethic, laws and things. The mayor just can't be accepting $30,000 worth of tickets from a company that's coming here that needs contracts and permits and things like that. That's not okay. But again, it's so normalized that people are
people are like, whatever. He's
the mayor.
He's the mayor. That's common. I'm just surprised he's not selling coke.
You're gonna drift a little bit. Come on, y'all. It's Miami.
I'm just surprised he's not moving keys. 100%. You can have all these laws on the books, but if there's no enforcement, there's no teeth. So it's whatever, bro. It's not a law. It's not a law until it gets enforced.
I know. You have
100%.
On the Carollo thing, you have 3 police chiefs.
Yeah.
A former city manager.
All calling them out.
His former staffers. Ken Russell, a former city commissioner, all on the record, under oath, being this guy used code enforcement and city agencies to go after businesses who supported his political opponent. He's been weaponizing
100%.
city agencies to his benefit. And that,
you'll probably get reelected.
But the worst part is that it never sees criminal court. They had to file a civil lawsuit for this to have any sort of effect.
Yeah.
I don't get it. It's crazy. There's no accountability. If you're powerful, you can skate. But if you're not powerful, they will,
they'll come down on you. Yeah, they come down on you. I mean, that's the wild west, really. Those are the parameters of wild west. That's mafia shit already. We're getting into mafia territory. One of the chief of police, one of the ex-chief police called it a Cuban mafia, right? And he got bunch of different people coming after him because they were saying, oh, he's calling them Cuban mafia, the communists or whatever the whole entire thing was. He was just saying, no, this is a mafia out here.
He should have just left out the Cuban part.
Yeah, he should have said
a lot
mafia.
of the other commissioners that are not Cuban are also act like mafia.
He should have just said Miami mafia. 100%. It's Dade County Miami mafia shit. And you have to be you got to be blessed by the Cosa Nostra to get the permits. You know what I'm saying? And if not, you hella fucked. It's crazy. So that goes into
hella fucked indeed.
You know what I'm saying? That's the way it works. People out here trying to make that bread, right? They're trying to make that money, so they feel that's the cost of doing business. I'll pay off whoever the fuck I got to pay off. Once again, this is a Latin American type of culture, right? That you import. In Latin America, you get pulled over. You're getting pulled over because the guy's trying to hit you up for money, not because he's gonna take you to jail or anything. Yeah. Regardless, and that's what you incorporate here. You're oh, if they could pay a cop off here, they would, bro. You know what I'm saying? Legit. Yeah. Now, you as an investigative journalist, you still got to make your bread, right? Uh-huh. How do you broach that? I got to make my bread. I got to still be able to pay my lifestyle, right? How do you get your funds up while doing the things that you believe in and espousing the views that you think needs to be put out there?
Yeah, so I actually don't make any money off of my writing or journalism.
Okay.
And I've had opportunities and I've mostly avoided them. And right now I get literally zero money from it. The way my job is in the immigration advocacy space. So I work for an organization. I'm a fellow for an organization called the Immigration Hub. And we do immigration advocacy campaigns. Right now, for example, we're working on getting temporary protected status, which is
TPS.
TPS, for the viewer, it's a executive designation for countries that are going through political or turmoil or natural disasters, they basically get like a temporary protected status so they can work here and be safe from deportation. Working on those campaigns, obviously, opposing a lot of the anti-immigration stuff that's happening in Florida, trying to get this asylum ban that the Biden administration is doing rolled back. Obviously, trying to fight for immigration reform. Trying to make the lives of immigrants a better place.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, I could not be an objective journalist. Going back to the beginning of the conversation, because I am an advocate, right? Like, I need to be able to say, because I want to, and because I believe in it, that like I believe that there should be immigration reform, and I believe that these are the actors, that are holding it back. These are the politicians that are playing political games with our people, and I need to be able to move as an advocate through spaces, and that requires a level of non-objectivity sometimes.
So you've been able to use your day job as like your own benefactor to launch off the writing, because I mean that's kind of like what you're using. I mean, you have to pay your lifestyle somehow, right? So you're using your day job, and you also do the writing. So you try to keep that. You try to keep the writing as true to what you believe in.
Yeah, I think it mostly just a lot of just like the stuff that I post and talk about, and talk about in our podcast or write about. Aside from the work that I do on immigration, just kind of happened organically because I'm pissed off. I mean, I'm pissed off about living in a city where and I do pretty okay financially. Like, I'm not like hurting, but I'm pissed off that when I came here as a child immigrant with my parents, we moved to North Beach where all the Argentinians were living. And by Manolos.
Yeah.
And we rented a 1-bedroom apartment. And it was $650.
Yeah.
And now you go live there, it's like over $2,000 for that same 1-bedroom. I'm pissed off about that. I'm pissed off that people can't buy a home here and build generational wealth because they can't get property insured, because they can't afford the HOA prices, because they can't put the down payment on the home. I'm pissed off about that. I think that's really unfair for working class people that just want to build some wealth for their kids. I'm pissed off at what's happening at the state level. The attacks against immigrants, the attacks against LGBTQ people, against trans people who just want to be left alone and figure out their identity and live the best life that they possibly can. I just think we have the climate change, right? The fact that it rains here for like 30 minutes and everything is flooded on my car. Yeah. I drive a little Fiat, bro. It could get fucked up, and flooded, and my car's gone.
Yeah.
Pissed off about that. The fact that I'm from Buenos Aires, in Argentina, fucked up country. Our economy's a mess, but like, aside from how fucked up the economy is, I'm like, how the fuck am I in this third world country and we have like an incredible subway system, and like incredible buses and like a public transportation in the city, and in Miami, the supposed first world, richest country in the world, I have like buses painted as trolleys and we're calling them trolley. Like, it's crazy, bro. Like, so I'm pissed off about all that, and I'm gonna be outspoken and try to inform people in my community about it, because I think they should also be pissed off. I'm pissed off that the mayor is getting fucking paid secretly by a developer that he's permitting for projects, and he doesn't bother to tell us. I think that's outrageous.
I mean, all of that, 100% facts, bro. I thumbs up everything you said. It's crazy because like, it's hard to get other people activated and be like, yeah, you know what, that's just fucked up. Let me do something about it. The least possible thing, which is go out and vote. That a lot of people don't want to do that. That's hard to like get people to even get out and vote. It's a situation that makes you say, you know what, that kind of grows the apathy. Like, that's how people get apathetic, and they're just like, bro, nobody's voting. There's no change. There's nothing coming. So let me just worry about me and mine, and try to figure it out for me, because like I can't worry about everybody else's shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I don't want to be cliche, but and I don't want to hate on like the New Yorkers, like people that are coming into Miami, but like I'm Argentinian, but I've been here since I'm 10.
Yeah.
And I grew up here, and I feel like I'm pretty close to this community. And I look at like the kids that are like from Miami, or I've been living here for a while, and it pisses me off. I'm like, damn, these kids, like, what the fuck are they gonna do? Like,
yeah, no, they're fucked.
They're priced out of their own city. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that makes me angry. Because this was always a playground for the wealthy.
But you had opportunity.
But you had opportunity. You know what I mean? There were areas of the city that were affordable. You could make a living here. There was a working class component to this city always. And in recent years, people are getting squeezed out. And I'm not even talking about poor, low-income people anymore.
700 in Hialeah.
I'm talking about like, middle class people are getting squeezed out.
That's
like the college educated. Everybody's getting squeezed out. That pisses me off. I think people should vote. Why wouldn't you, right? But like my thing is when people ask me like, like what should I do? I'm like, yeah, vote, but like just get angry.
Just get angry.
Get angry at somebody. You know what I mean? Get angry at somebody in power, and just realize that you're being taken for a ride. That like you're getting fucking grifted.
Yeah.
That is just my call to action. Just get. And I don't want to sound like an angry guy because I think I'm pretty joyful. If you hang out with me, I'm pretty fun. But like, you should be aware that you are getting grifted, especially if you live in this city, and you should get a little pissed off.
Damn, that's crazy, bro. That's hard to do. But yeah, you definitely do need to get angry. You need to get emotional about the things that are happening to you, and don't think that it's just life. No, like a lot of these things happen like as scripted. The whole thing that you touched on, like, why isn't there a transportation system? I mean, because there's more money in building roads than there is building a metro rail, to be honest with you. And people, like, you hand out those construction, jobs, and your friends get rich.
Can I tell you a story about that? Probably anybody with libertarian inclinations are probably going to love this.
Yeah.
I go get my hair cut at this place in Coral Way. I'm not gonna say a name because I might know, whatever. But this place in Coral Way's been going there for like 7 years now.
Okay.
And there's a lot of construction that's been happening in this area of Coral Way, reaching Brickell.
Okay.
And the last few times that I've been there, I'm not a guy that gets my hair cut a lot either. I go like once every month, every 2 months. So I'm like, damn, they're still constructing here. Like, is this affecting your business? Because, like you have to make a U-turn.
Yeah.
You can't find parking. And I was like, damn, this
It's
must
a
be
pain in the
fucking
ass,
with them. Especially now they had told me that they raised their rent, and they're like, yeah, it's fucking with us.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
100%.
I'm like, damn, did you like go talk to them? Like, did you call FDOT or anything? The Florida Department of Transportation to see when they're gone? They're like, yeah, we call FDOT. You know what they told us? That
Go fuck yourself.
Basically, because of the term of their contract, they're on a timeline, and they can't finish faster than November of this year.
Damn, that's wild.
Like, how does that make any fucking sense? And it's because, again, like
somebody's
cousin's company got the contract, and you know what I mean? Like, the money's rolling in until November, no matter what, and like,
let's get this
somebody
money.
at the state level is getting a kick. You know what I mean? Like, it's just all a grift. But you know who's like hurting?
That small business.
That small business. And that's what happened in Flagler.
Yeah,
Remember
happened
how
a lot
long
to Flagler.
Flagler was shut down?
It's happening right now, like Over Under and like Lost Boy and all of that.
But before, when it was over the bridge out west,
oh,
remember
yes,
that was closed for years.
Yeah, it was.
Years. And it put out so many of those businesses
I think they do it purposely though, because they want to like redevelop that.
Oh, that's my point.
Yeah.
They do it on purpose to close those businesses out, to redevelop. I mean, we know that Mana Moshe, whatever, that developer, is trying to buy that whole area of Flagler and redevelop it, according to his vision. But, there were families and small businesses there that had been there for decades
and sustain their whole life off of that.
That area of Flagler, again, west of the 95 until like 12 or whatever, hasn't recovered.
No,
So
it hasn't.
many
It's
businesses
yeah,
still
it's
out
dead.
of.
Yeah, and it's crazy because the road is brand new. The road is
The
brand
road is new, but if you
Yeah,
walk
there's-
around there,
yeah, it's
then
dead.
it's dead.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, yeah, that's happened. That also was happening to Barnancy. They were going through some stuff with the city because they're part of Cayocho, and that's another thing that they're trying to redevelop and they're trying to knock everything down and just put new concrete and glass and just. I mean, you know what? This really, bro, it's just gonna keep happening. And there's and you feel like this is never gonna end. You just feel getting. It feels like you're getting bulldozed, like literally, like figuratively and literally. Like the buildings and everything's getting bulldozed, and the people themselves are just getting bulldozed. And it's like Corbin, like Billy says, oh, that whole thing of like stop being rich and shit. That stop being poor.
Stop being
yeah,
poor,
stop being
yeah.
poor. That song, that shit always pops in my head. It's like stop being poor. Like yeah, like that's what people are out here is like. Yo, stop being poor because if you're poor, then you pa la verga. It is what it is. And it's tough, and it's like, yo, that's not what the city used to be. That's not what the vision of the city. That's not what Julia Tuttle established this city
So
for.
I'm saying,
You know what I'm
look, I mean, this place was never some like utopic, center of equity, but it used to be a place where, again, there was like a real working class element.
Opportunity.
There was opportunity. You could hustle. I mean, I hustled. Like
Yeah.
I did pretty okay here,
Yeah.
but I think about it and I'm like, damn, like if I was like 16 now,
Oh, it would be much
I'd be
different
like,
story.
damn, like it's tough.
Yeah. It's a tough situation. I just hope that people really come que se dan de cuenta, like wake up and they do get angry, like you were saying. Like get angry and get your ass to the voters box, bro. And like vote for somebody who you feel represents the things that you want the community to look like. It's that simple. So like you want a community that's closed off and shit like that, vote for that. Because
Yeah.
there's a lot of NIMBY people out here too, bro. Don't even think of like South Florida, like, yeah, you know what? Equal housing, da. But not over here.
Bro,
but not over here.
just-
Don't do it down my street.
Just recently, a good thing that's happening, even though I wish it was happening elsewhere, because we need it all over the city, but they're building that train from South Beach to downtown.
Yeah.
It's for tourists.
Yeah.
But trains are good. I like trains.
Yeah. Public transportation.
Public
is good.
transportation is good. We need to put that everywhere, And I saw a video that I was like, this just embodies like Miami idiocy to a T. It was like a bunch of NIMBY motherfuckers
Yeah.
on one of these like luxury condos in South Beach, basically being, stop the train. Did you see that? Stop the
No, I
train.
didn't see that.
Stop it. Because they were like, we don't want that element
Yeah, we don't want
coming
poor
from the
people come over
mainland
here.
into here. I'm like,
You just say it. We don't want no poor people over here. But you know what? I would respect you more if you just say what it is. Like, just say it. I don't want no poor people in my backyard. It sounds bad, and it is bad, but at least you saying how you feel. Don't try to like, the element and all that bullshit. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's wild. That's on both sides. Like, yo, just say how you feel. Like, don't try to like, don't put the lipstick on the pig. Just show me the pig, and I'll be more understanding of your perspective. You know what I'm saying?
100%.
And that's what it really is. Like the only way we come together is if I understand your perspective and I understand what you're saying. The only way that that's gonna happen is if you speak and you communicate your truth to me, and then I could be like, okay, I see your truth. Now let's try to get to a point where we both have a happy kind of outcome or something along both of our truths. Like if not me lying what I want or you lying what you want.
And to your point, again, I'm a pretty progressive guy
Yeah.
on pretty much all the issues, but I've actually, recently have talked to a lot of conservatives, a lot of right-wing people in the city specifically,
Yeah.
that are tired of the grift.
Yeah.
That are like, beyond all of like the state level issues or whatever. Like, I just think we deserve like better parks,
Better permitting systems.
yeah, better permitting.
That's
like,
really what they're worried about.
I mean, but sure, we do need
It's
better
true.
zoning. We
Yeah.
do need we do need more housing, but we
Yeah.
need the right type of housing, not just these luxury condos that are unaffordable and don't actually create more inventory, right?
Yeah.
We do need better public
Those are safety
transportation.
deposit boxes.
I am tired of my city flooding. So yeah, I mean, there's common ground that
Yeah,
we
there's
can
a lot of
make
common
with
ground.
people.
There's a lot of common ground, bro. There's a
But we have
lot.
to realize that, like, we share a lot more common with each other
Yeah.
than we do with the people in power in terms of just like I need
Day-to-day
to
stuff.
afford like my day-to-day living.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're getting distracted with a lot of bullshit.
It is. It's the truth, bro. Yo, I appreciate you coming onto the podcast, my dog. Thank you so much, Thomas. I thank you so much for sharing your thoughts,
Yeah.
sharing your experiences, letting us know how you're doing it out here as a creative with your writing. If people want to reach out to you, if they wanted to follow your stuff, where can they follow your stuff?
Yeah, you can reach me at TOMASKENN.
Okay.
Tomas Ken.
Okay.
You can follow me on Instagram, on Twitter, or just look up my Substack, Tomas Kennedy.
All right. Thank you so much,
Oh,
Thomas.
My podcast, Why Are We Like This? You can find it on walt.com. That's just the acronym for Why Are We Like This, or Apple Podcast and Spotify, all that.
Why are we like this? I like the name of that podcast. That's true.
We're
bro.
talking about.
We're talking about it right now. Why are we like this, Miami?
Yeah.
Bro, so much. Thank you so much, bro. I appreciate your talk and your time. Thank you for talking to us. And like I always say, if you like this podcast, please share and subscribe. Share it with your friends. If you hated the podcast, please share it with your enemies. Please just share this motherfucker.
And if you
all right?
hated this episode, it's just me. A podcast is great. Just keep listening.
Thank you so much, man. Hasta la próxima. Peace. Here we go, bro. Thank you, Thomas, for coming on to the podcast, sharing your experiences, and being honest and transparent with us. I hope your insights prove valuable to the people who are listening to the podcast. To everybody who's out there listening, thank you so much for sharing. Like I always say, hasta la próxima, que te crezca. I love you guys. Peace.